All right. Good morning, ladies and gents. From here and beyond. Michael, how are you? Michelle, good to see you. Lisheva, hello. Okay. This week's Parsha is Parshat Chayei Sara, which means the life of Sarah. So on the Parsha facts, you see it's chapter 23, verse 1 through chapter 25, verse 18 in Chumash Bereshis, the book of Genesis, page 106 through 123 in your handy art scroll. Number of verses in the Parsha is 105. Total amount of commandments, 0. There are no commandments in it. But some important lessons nevertheless, even though it doesn't have the commandments in it. So here we go. Michelle, I'd be very tempted to play the music behind you if I knew how to read notes. Your screensaver, but I don't know how to do it. So, all right. So the Parsha begins with Sarah, the righteous wife of Avrohom, passing away. The oral tradition tells us what happened. So the Medrash says that it's tied to the end of last week's portion. Who remembers what happened at the end of last week's portion? So much going on. Can you limit that? Letty, you wanted to say something besides that you're overwhelmed like Alondras? Yeah, so the last thing in the portion was that Avrohom was tested with bringing up his son Yitzchak as a sacrifice, right? So the Medrash says that Sarah woke up in the morning and sees Avrohom and Yitzchak are gone. And she starts looking around. Where are they? And she asks, she can't find them, so she asks a giant to go, you see, you're taller, where are they? And the giant says, oh, Avrohom is on a mountaintop with Yitzchak, and Avrohom is slaughtering Yitzchak, which the Surgeon General has determined that that's not a great thing to tell a Jewish mother. You know? So according to the Medrash, at this point, she, from the shock of that, died. Now, did in fact he slaughter Yitzchak? No. So wording is very important. When I call a parent at school, let's say a kid, fell down and, has a nosebleed or something and there's blood all over his shirt, I'll call the mother and I'll say, hi, this is Chaim's Rabbi, but you will see blood all over his shirt because he had a nosebleed. So I because the Rebbe's calling from school, like, what happened? Nothing happened. It's just a little normal kids thing, okay? So yeah, the wording, you have to be careful, sensitive to how you say what you're going to say. And this giant was not very sensitive. He says, oh, he's slaughtering your son. Great. Now, so according to the Medrash, the simple interpretation of the Medrash is that she was shocked and had a heart attack and boom, that was it. The Hasidic interpretation of that Medrash, thank you, is that the Hasidic interpretation of that one is that she was totally at peace with it because she felt she accomplished. If she was able to have a son who was willing to be a sacrifice for God, and that Avrohom was doing what he was doing, I completed my task. I can pass on. Do you hear the difference there? Okay, so it's a different approach of viewing it. But in any event, either way, this is what happened. So now, so what does it say? It says Sarah's lifetime was 100 years, 20 years, and 7 years, the years of Sarah's life. So grammatically, it's a little bit off, it seems, because it says 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. Why not just say 127? Right? That would be, from an editing point of view, that would be a better way of writing it. So sages tell us there is actually, each one was unique and compared to the other. She was like 100, like 20, with no sin.
Okay. This is what your grandson was asking, right?
No, my grandson was asking something else, why it says the years of life of Sarah twice. We're not talking about that now. What we're talking about is why it says each one separately. Why say 100 years, 20 years, 7 years? Just say 127 years.
Right.
Seems to be extra words, and there's nothing extra in the Torah. So 100 like 20, free of sin. 20 like 7 in beauty. Now, what's the problem with that understanding? 20 was like 7 in beauty.
She looks good. She looked good. She looked well for her age.
No, I'm saying 20 like 7 in beauty. What was that? What would that mean? You don't think of 7-year-olds as being more beautiful than 20-year-olds, right? And the
That's a good one. Yeah.
very good. The innocent. I mentioned something on Shabbos that shocked me this week. I found a 29-year-old member of the Jewish community here, was raised religious, lived in Los Angeles all of his life. He just, till relatively recently, found out what marijuana was. He had no idea what it was. What? He does live right here, grew up here. And I was so impressed. I said, you're so lucky, you know, very special. So the 20 to 7 in beauty is this idea of and there's a real problem today with secular and non-Jewish kids that they dress, it has a name, the trash look. And that's a terrible thing. We're taking little kids and making them look much older. So this is one way of understanding. She was 20, like 100 to 20, like she was free of sin, like when she was 20, and 20 like 7 in beauty, in the sense of that innocence. And it says the words Shnei Chayei Sara a second time. Rashi says another reason is because they were all equally good, which is a little bit difficult to understand. How could they have all been equally good? She was childless for 90 years of her life. She had problems with Avrahom's second wife, Hagar. She was abducted twice by kings. How could it all have been good? Equally good. So when you live a life of purpose and meaning and faith, then it can be good, as opposed to people who live with a bucket list. I must ride in an RV. I have to take a cooking class. I have to be in Times Square on New Year's Eve. I have to send a message in a bottle. You know, if I have to do all of those things before I feel my life is complete, then that's not all good. Many people don't live completely good lives because we are focused on many distractions. One distraction, from 2016, an article, the average American adults are watching 5 hours and 4 minutes of television per day. The bulk of that, about 4.5 hours of it, is live television, which is television when originally broadcast. 30 minutes more comes from via DVR, and that's in 1916. The numbers are now totally different, I'm sure. The amount of time you spend consuming media, watching TV, surfing the web on a computer, using the app on your phone, listening to the radio, and so forth continues to go up. Nielsen said that in 2015, Americans spent about 9.5 hours each day consuming content this way. This year, in 2016, the average is 10 hours and 39 minutes. So plenty of time to sleep, if not to read a book. Forget about what it is now, 2022.
They don't call it that anymore. They would call it screen time.
Right.
And you put it all
In one big lump, correct. So that's something we have to be really cognizant of. Now, what happens? Avrohom returns and finds that his wife had died. What would be a normal human reaction to that? Oh my gosh, I went and did what God wanted, and look what happened. She got a heart attack. And this is a very important idea. There's something in the prayer that we say that we should take Satan away, milifanenu umeacharenu. In the evening service, we say this: take Satan, the evil inclination, away from us, before us and after us. What does that mean, before us and after us? So the simple interpretation of before us is the evil inclination stands in front of us saying is, don't do the good thing. Don't go visit. You don't have time. You're tired. Go rest, watch a movie, check out Netflix. That's before us. Behind us is he pushes us to do the wrong thing. The Satan in front of us or behind us. The Vilna Gaon says, however, a different interpretation. What he says is that before us means before we do something, and afterwards is after we did the right thing. The evil inclination wants us to regret doing it. He wants us to regret doing it. You shouldn't have done that right thing, because had you not done that right thing, then X, Y, and Z could have happened. It's a very sweet idea that I read about a woman named Maya Lerner. She was born in communist Russia, where belief in God was not part of on her agenda. Anti-Semitic classmates prompted her to search for her creator, and she became religious. She got into a terrible accident, which she lost one of her arms. Her recovery was long and painful, but she made a decision to live with happiness and recognition that God is the one in charge. She chose to view her circumstances as hardships, not as hardships, but rather as opportunities for growth. So she said that watch out for Satan from behind us, who causes us to regret the mitzvahs that we did. When she explained that since she had gotten hit on the way to do a mitzvah, some irreligious people told her that she would not have attempted to do the right thing, she would have been spared. She said that view is incorrect. In English, the word life has the word if in it, L-I-F-E, if. She says, if only, no. The middle of the Hebrew word chayim, life, contains two yods, that's God's name. So we're meant to serve God with different tests, big ones and small ones, even ones that are small that people don't see, but that could be very challenging. And God is impressed with how we overcome our challenges, no matter how big or small they are. So this is an important idea of not having regret for the past good that we've done. We can't foresee the future or the past, and we can't say, if only I would have done X, Y, and Z, this was going to happen. You don't know what would have happened. You made the right choice, be happy with that. So Avram comes back and he eulogizes her. And there's a very beautiful poem that by Linda Ellis that really says a lot. and I'd like to share it with you. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from beginning to the end. Now, in a Jewish tombstone, we don't really put English dates, and we don't put the birth date and the death date. We just put the death date, not the birth date. But in a secular one, that's a non-Jewish one, that's very common. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears, but he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. Okay? For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? You never know how much time is left that still can be arranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider that's what's true and real. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. And be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love to people in our lives like we never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remember this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? Very powerful, really very, very nicely done.
Did you get that for DoorDash?
Dave, where's my crank to make your chair? Oh, I should have put it in, Dave. I should have put it in. In any event, so it says that Avram came and eulogized her and cried a little bit. Gesundheit. Why did he cry a little bit? Why didn't he cry a lot of it? Then not do a crying. He didn't cry a lot because she had lived a very full, rich life. As we said before, it was a good life filled with meaning and purpose. And he didn't have to, what could have been, what should have been. Because she used her time well and fully in the service of the Almighty and to help others and to teach and inspire. So that is something very special. The oral tradition brings that the son of the great sage Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai died. His disciples came to console him. So one of his disciples said, the first man had a son who died and he was consoled. You should also accept condolences. So Rabbi Yochanan said, not only do I have my personal suffering, now you remind me of the first man's suffering. His disciple Rabbi Yeshua entered. Job had sons and daughters and they all died and he was consoled. Not only do I have my personal suffering, but now you remind me of Eov's suffering. His disciple Rabbi Yossi entered. Aaron had two great sons and they both died on the same day and he was consoled. You should also accept consolation. Not only do I have my personal suffering, now you remind me of Aaron's suffering. His disciple Rabbi Shimon entered and said, David the king had a son who died and he was consoled. You should also accept consolation. Not only do I have my own personal suffering, now you remind me of David's suffering. Rabbi Elazar ben Arachan said, I give you an analogy to your situation. The king entrusted a precious object with one of his subjects. The subject was in a state of constant worry. When will I be able to return the object undamaged and unsoiled to the king? My teacher, you are in a similar situation. You had a son who was a Torah scholar and left this world without sin. Be consoled that you have returned the perfect state to which the king entrusted you. Eliezer, my son, you have properly comforted me. So telling somebody other people had bad situations, they were consoled. He didn't like that. But when you said that he returned his son back to the Creator in the proper way, that was a real consolation for him. All right, so Avram needs to find a burial spot. No cremation. No cremation. Very important idea in Judaism that we don't cremate a person who passes away. So that's a very important idea. And he's going to buy a plot, and he wants to buy a plot from someone named Ephron. the children of Chais, those are the ones who own this land, and he wants to buy from Ephron. Why does he want to purchase it from Ephron? Because actually one day he was taking care of a sheep, and a sheep ran into a cave, and in the cave he saw the bodies of Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, and he saw there was room for more people. So he said, this is the place that I want to be buried and bury my wife. So he offers to purchase it from Ephron, and let's see what Ephron says. He says, no, my lord, heed me, I've given you the field, and as for the cave that's in it, I've given it to you. He, in front of everybody, says, it's yours to keep. Avram says, thanks, but no thanks. And he says to him, please, I'd like to pay you for it. And Ephron says, sure, for 400 silver coins between me and you. What's that? What happened?
$2 million.
Do I hear three? He started off saying it's free. And once Avram says he wants to pay, he charges him top dollar. So last week we had the concept of Amor ma'atva say harbe, say a little and do a lot. Avram offered the visitors bread, but actually gave them a full course meal. Here we have the wicked do the opposite. They say a lot and do little. He said it's free, and when Avram said, I want to pay it, oh, well, okay, 400 silver coins. So it's a little bit of a reversal of what he originally said. But Avram pays it out and purchases it, and now he pays it, and now the land is elevated, and he buries Sarah in the cave of Machpelah, which is in the city of Hebron. And by the way, that is the burial site today. You can travel to Hebron, where Avram and Sarah, Abram and Sarah are buried, Yitzchak and Rivka are buried, and Yaakov and Leah are buried there. So people travel there to this day. You have to go with a group because Hebron is a little bit of a hotbed of Arab unrest, but nevertheless, people go to the cave of Machpelah and pray there all the time. Okay? So that's where it is today. Now, Avram is getting older, and he needs to find a wife for Yitzchak. So he tells his faithful servant Eliezer that he would like him to go find a wife for Avram, but not from the Canaanite people. He wants him to go, to his old place. And why doesn't he send Yitzchak? He doesn't send Yitzchak because he was brought up as a sacrifice, can never leave the land of Israel, the future land of Israel. So if he needs a wife from someplace else, he needs him to come. He was brought up onto the mountain. Last week's Parsha, he was brought up, not raised as a sacrifice, no. So Eliezer goes. Now, Eliezer really wanted his daughter to be the one for Yitzchak, but Avram said he can't be because you're a Canaanite, and therefore it doesn't work. As much as he respected Eliezer, he said it's not going to work. You need to be blessed. So Eliezer goes, takes some of Avram's animals, which were muzzled because they shouldn't eat from anybody else. And he comes to the place there, and he has an interesting prayer and request. He goes to the well, and he prays to Hashem, and he says, please do a loving kindness with my master Avrohom. I'm going to be by the well, and I'm going to ask the young women who come to the well to give me water. And the woman who says, I'll give you and your camels water, that should be the one that should be for Yitzchak. So what was the test that she was setting up? A kindness. And what was the kindness part? Right. So the key part of that is she's asking only for himself. He's asking just, water, can I have a drink? And on her own, she's going to do more than what he asked, to say, I'll give you, and I'll give the camels as well. And camels know how to drink, right? So that's what it is. Now, the problem is this a legitimate thing to test the person, to make it figure out? The old person, Hashem, I'm on a diet, but if there's a spot in front of the bakery, it means I should go buy some donuts. So is a test a good idea or not? So our sages tell us, in fact, that it's not a good idea to do tests. And some people tried it, and it did not work out well for them. And some people tried it, and it did work out well. Eliezer wasn't certain that it would be the right person, because what would have happened if there was a person who wasn't healthy but did the request? It could have been stuck with a difficult situation. But Hashem made it that it should be the right one. King Shaul HaMelech said, whoever will subdue the giant Goliath will become my son-in-law. Again, it could have been somebody inappropriate for his daughter. But Hashem granted his request, and King David was the one who killed Goliath, or Goliath in English, for those not familiar with it. The third was the judge Yiftach, battling against Ammon. He vowed, if I will return home in peace from the battle with Ammon, I'll sacrifice whatever steps out of my house first. And that was a mistake to do that, because what ended up happening was his daughter came out first. So that was not a good thing. So the question is, why did Hashem respond kindly to Eliezer and Shaul's requests while he rejected Yiftach? So the oral tradition explains in the commentaries that Eliezer asked Hashem to send Yitzchak's mate. The request entailed the girl should possess the trait of kindliness. Similarly, Shaul knew that the man who would be victorious over Goliath and the salvation of the Jewish people had to be a man of great merit. So it made sense. The condition they imposed thus gave a request a valid foundation. But Yiftach's vow, on the other hand, was reckless. It would have been preferable had he never pronounced it, and Hashem therefore did not respond gracefully to it.
What was the third one?
Yiftach.
Sent a woman out or something?
He said the first thing that comes out of the house, and he meant an animal, would be a sacrifice. And it ended up being his daughter, which was not a good thing. In any event, but Hashem responded, and Rivka came. The righteous Rivka came. And he asked her for a drink, and she said yes. And when he finished drinking, he said, I'll also give your camels. And interestingly enough, when she came to the well, the water rose for her, because she was a righteous person. And he found out that it was from the right family, and he couldn't believe that Hashem had made this happen. He took gold rings, 2 bracelets for arms, and 10 gold shekels with their weight. And what's interesting, our sages tell us that the 2 bracelets represent the 2 tablets, and that they weigh 10 shekel was about the 10 commandments. Mm-hmm. So he was sort of preparing her for the future that way. He thanks Hashem, and then she goes back and he wants to negotiate with the family because she's young, and he asks, who you from? And says, oh, from the family, related, a distant relative to Yitzchak. Oh, says, is there a place for me to stay? He said, yes, don't worry, everything's fine. And he bows to Hashem and thanks him. And he says, blessed is Hashem, the God of my master Avrohom, who has not withheld his kindness and truth from my master. As for me, God has guided me on the way to the house of my master's brothers. So he's completing his mission. Yes, Letty. Yes. They were not a righteous family, and this is a very interesting idea because these guys are idol worshippers and not great. And what's fascinating is that the commentaries tell us that having the wrong belief system in and of itself might not be the end of the world, because the belief system you can talk about and you can get clarity about. Character, that's much more difficult to change. Character is much more difficult to change. Okay, so that's what's going on with here. And Rivka had a brother named Lavan, not a good guy. And Lavan sees the gifts, says, ooh, there's some potential business here. Let's see what we can do. And he goes and says, oh, come, blessed is God, come. Why are you standing outside? Come inside. And they put food, and Besuel, the father, decides to poison the food so that all the gifts he brought with the 10 camels would be taken care of very quickly. And he doesn't want to eat till he says his whole story, and he explains the story about that I'm required to bring the wife to Yitzchak, and if I can't, then I'm off the hook because Yitzchak can't leave the land of Israel, and it should be someone from his family, from Avrohom's family, and if not, then I've absolved from my vow. And I came to the well. It says over the whole story and how he prayed, and lo and behold, this is what happened. If you agree that I can take her to be Yitzchak's wife, great. If not, I will go someplace else. And Lavan answers before his father Besuel and says, sure, this is from Hashem. Go ahead. And he was grateful to the Almighty. And Hashem helps him out by sending an angel to switch the plates. And Besuel, the father, ends up eating the poison and he dies, but Eliezer is spared. And then now the brother and the mother are hesitant. Maybe she shouldn't go. Maybe she wants to stay. And they ask Rivka, and Rivka wants to go. Again, she's righteous, and she feels it would be an honor to be married to Yitzchak. And she goes with him, and they head back. Now, what's interesting is that the commentaries ask, why would there be such a jewel from Rivka from such a lousy family? Why would Hashem do that? Why would Hashem do that? And the commentaries, the oral tradition tells us something very powerful, that this is a prerequisite for the Jewish people being in the exile. Because people will be in exile and will be exposed to all different kinds of things, and we will have people that maybe come from not such glorious backgrounds, but the potential is there. they can still join the Jewish people, be part of the Jewish people, in spite of the background, in spite of their experience, in spite of the exposure that they had. And this is a powerful idea. I think I have time to tell you the story about this that I think you'll find interesting. The stories were shared with me by Rebbetzin Heller, now Rebbetzin Gottlieb, a very powerful, brilliant woman. She's a teacher in Israel. And she shared a story about a man who was dating one of her students. Now, the man's background was very, very sheltered life. It was a Hasidic upbringing, very sheltered, never been married. And the student of Rebbetzin Heller was a woman who had not a sheltered life. To put it simply, she had partied a lot before she get into religion. And Rebbetzin Heller did not see these two people being together at all. She felt it was like two different worlds. They were both religious now, but this one was raised religious, this was not raised religious. And she was discouraging of it. And the backgrounds were so different. Just as an example, she would say, oh, by the way, you know that San Francisco has a lot of gay people. And he said, I don't know, I was there. I didn't see people especially happy. You know, went totally over his head, you know. So she was discouraging of it, but it was going well. And finally, she decided, and they were about to get engaged, and she decided to call the Hasidic rabbi of this man and say, you know, is this really such a good idea? And the Hasidic rabbi said something very wise and said, this is not the world of completion, but rather the world of fixing. And therefore, they each have to fix their own thing. And the fact that they're coming from two different worlds, they can do it together and fix what they have to fix individually and not necessarily be a perfect match in the sense of backgrounds being the same. Very powerful idea. And each one has their own things to fix. And she has her things, her past, and he has his things. And she ended up finding out that the reason why he didn't get married is because he was the only child and he took care of his parents till they passed. So there was a lot of good there too. And, you know, hopefully they're living happily ever after, which at the time, that's what Rebbetzin Heller had told me. But it's a powerful story about this idea of people from different backgrounds. Rivka was coming from a very not nice family, but she was a jewel from that background. And that Hashem set that up to let us know that regardless of the person's mistakes of the past, we talked about it yesterday in Shul, yesterday during the third meal, that we can close the door on the past and move on and make a new beginning. And that's a powerful and important idea. Now, our sages tell us that when they came, Eliezer was coming with Rivka, Yitzchak was praying in the field in the afternoon. And not coincidentally, each of the patriarchs, Avrohom, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, established something to do with prayer. Avrohom established prayer in the morning, Shachris, the morning service. Yitzchak established daily prayer in the afternoon, and Yaakov established prayer in the evening for Ma'ariv, the evening service. And Rivka came and they got married, and the verse tells us something interesting. Isaac brought her to the tent of Sarah, they got married, and he married Rivka, and she became his wife, and he loved her, and thus Yitzchak was consoled after his mother. Now, what does that mean? A therapist would have a wonderful time with this idea of Yitzchak being consoled after his mother when he got married. And the answer is as follows. Our sages tell us that there were three constant miracles by the tent of Sarah. There was the divine cloud, the divine presence was above her tent. We mentioned this already in the past. The candles burned from Friday to Friday. and there was a blessing in the dough. And we said this corresponded to the three mitzvahs, the mitzvah of laws of family purity and the laws of keeping Shabbos and the laws of kosher. But that's what happened with Sarah's tent. When Sarah passed away, those three things vanished. She died. They weren't there anymore. Now Yitzchak got married to Rivka, and the three miracles returned. So that's why Yitzchak was comforted from the loss of his mother, because he saw that he chose a righteous person. Yes, Phyllis.
What is the explanation for how the Marav, Mincha, and Shachris were each of the three sages established?
Three patriarchs, yes.
So in what context? I mean, why did not one person, how did it come about that each one established those prayer rituals?
Well, you have to understand, prayer is something that has always been around. Everybody prayed. But to establish daily prayer, that's what Avrohom did. He did the morning service, Yitzchak did the afternoon, and Yaakov did Ma'ariv.
But is there something in particular that happened that each of them chose to establish that particular time?
It's a good question. I can't tell you. Just it says here that it was the afternoon, and Yitzchak went out to supplicate in the field towards evening, and that's the verse that teaches us that he established Mincha.
Oh, okay.
All right, and then we have verses to indicate Shachris for Avrohom and evening services for Yaakov.
Oh.
I mean, on a deeper level, Yaakov is Ma'ariv evening because Yaakov represents the Jew in exile, and it's dark, and we don't see God's hand. You know, that's a different discussion for another time.
If you have it, otherwise I'll try to look it up. I would be curious as to the segments that
The verses.
the verses.
So this one for Yitzchak in this week's Parsha is chapter 24, verse 63. Okay.
Rabbi Czapnik, I wonder if for Avrohom it's like Vayash came baboker, like he got up early,
Yeah, that could be.
you know,
Could
and
be.
then for Yaakov, like, you know, his whole fighting with the Malach happened, the dreams with the ladder, like it happened at night, right?
Yes, again, I'd have to double check to make sure the which exact psukim it is. I don't have it off the top of my head, but you could very well be correct. So now what ends up happening is that Avrohom marries a woman named Keturah, which our sages tell us is really Hagar. He remarries her, and he has children, but it's important to know that Yitzchak is still the primary child, and who's the inheritance of the spiritual journey of the Jewish people is only going to Yitzchak. Interestingly enough, it says here that the children of Keturah were sent east while he was still alive, while Yitzchak obviously was alive. And interesting, there are those that say, and this doesn't have to be the case, that could be the gifts that he gave them was the wisdom of Eastern religions. That's coming from Avrohom. And in fact, it's true that the mystical Eastern religions are more connected to Judaism than really Christianity is. So that's just a side thing. But
I actually recently heard that. I knew that Buddhism comes from Brahmanism, but I recently heard that if you look at the word Brahmanism, it's literally Avrohomism.
okay, it could be. Yeah, so that it would be related to this in the Parsha, where it says that he sent them east. East now does, we think east. The literal translation means east of where they were living, but in relationship to Buddhism would be the Far East, But be that as it may, the Parsha, toward the end of the Parsha, we see that Avram is 175 years old and he passes away. And again, and the words are interesting in chapter 25, verse 7. Now, these are the days of the years of Avram's life, which he lived 100 years, 70 years, and 5 years. Why the days of the years of Avram's life? The days of the years, because again, every day counted. The poem we read about the dash, making every day count. and that was Avram, and that was Sarah. And his sons Yitzchak and Yishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah that he bought. And so now we have Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve there, and now Avram and Sarah are buried there now. And then the Parsha concludes with the family of Ishmael. Yes.
You said Adam and Chava were already in the cave?
Yes. Yes, that's why Avram,
Why?
because it was owned by the children of Ches, and Ephron had it, and he ended up paying him. That was at the beginning of the Parsha, where Ephron ended up paying, and all right. So we talked about tests, and there are many tests that people go through, and Avram went through 10 tests. So I'm going to share a beautiful story. We'll conclude with this. Her name was Henny Machlis, an unbelievable Jewish woman who had opened her home in Israel all the time. So for those who equate spiritual greatness with God consciousness and with the ability to see God's hand always and everywhere, Henny Machlis, this woman, had indeed achieved these spiritual heights. At the funeral, a tearful Rabbi Machlis related just one story. By the way, their home was always open for guests. They never know how many people would be coming. He invited a destitute man who we saw at the Kotel to come home with him to eat. That day, Henny served her homemade whole wheat pizza. The man loved it. He came back to their house every day asking for a slice of whole wheat pizza. Finally, Henny suggested that she could teach him how to make the whole wheat pizza. Painstakingly, with infinite patience, Henny taught him how. One night, several days later, at 3 a.m., there was a knock on the door. Not their front door, Rabbi Machlis, because our front door is always unlocked. Someone was knocking on our bedroom door at 3 a.m. I'm not recommending anybody do this, but the loud knocking woke them up. Alarmed at what must be an emergency, Rabbi Machlis went to the door and asked, "Who's there?" And the man identified and said, "Rabbi Machlis, what's wrong?" Says the man replied, "I forgot how to make the whole wheat pizza. I need your wife to explain it to me again." Ah! Don't try this in my house because I will not respond as well as they did. Rabbi Machlis was exasperated. At 3 o'clock in the morning, you need to remember how to make whole wheat pizza? But Henny calmed him down. It's a test, she assured him. It's from Hashem. Then Henny reiterated to the man step by step how to make the whole wheat pizza. So amazing, amazing people. We have amazing people. All right. So in any event, this is a bit about Parshat Chayei Sara. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Yes.
Not necessarily related, but I'm just curious about the spelling of Sarah versus Shira.
Shira?
Yeah, are they similar in their spelling?
Some of the letters are the same, and it's Shira is Shin Yud Resh Hey, and Sarah is Sin Resh Hey. I was just missing a Yud.
Did they say where Hagar is buried?
No, I don't know where Hagar is buried. No, I'm not familiar with that. No.
The third miracle was, the middle one was the Shabbos candles they lit the whole.
From Friday to Friday, correct. Thoughts, questions, comments?
I just wonder when he went to the well and he said he was looking for the righteous person.
Right.
Exactly what was said, because did he say the first? He didn't say the first person who comes and says, "What are my animals?" is going to be the person.
Yeah, he said the person who I will ask for water for myself, and the person who on their own not only gives me, but also gives my animals. That should be the one. Yeah, it's in the verse, all in the text. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Michelle, what's the music behind you? What's the music from the screen?
It is the piccolo part from the Stars and Stripes version.
Okay. Good to know.
I'm not playing it. Here.
I don't mind.
Thank you, Rabbi. Very beautiful share.
You're okay. Thank you so much.
I
Rabbi
have
Czapnik.
one question.
David.
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, by the way, I'm right near your place already. I've been driving, but it's okay. I've been
Yeah,
hearing.
no, you can turn around unless you're here for the
Well,
book sale. Yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
go, I'm gonna at least get the book sale, I think.
Okay,
but-
yes. What can I do for you, David?
But I'm wondering,
That's dangerous. Yes.
I'm wondering how exactly, because I know that they were kind of related, even though you say they weren't such a great family. But how was Abraham related to Rivka, or Isaac related to Rivka? Was there was a
Yes.
family?
Look at the end of last week's parsha. It lists it there very clearly. Okay.
Okay, I'll have to go look again. Okay, thanks.
Good. And yes, Letty.
Rabbi Czapnik, I have a question.
One second, Elisheva. Yeah, 1 second. Someone's asking. Avrohom wanted that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Elisheva.
Well, my question is not about the shear. I have a quick question about the book sale. So whenever you're finished, I wanted to just ask you a quick question.
I don't know much about it. It's from 1 to 5 today, and the library is open, and Mrs. Hayim, who's in charge of it, is here, so she can answer your questions about it. You can
Oh,
try
I just wanted
calling.
to, I wanted to
Yeah,
know if
you-
I could drop off some books. Is she the person who decides if they're in or out?
Yes,
Okay.
she decided.
All right,
Okay.
thanks. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Yes. Where do you see that? A little louder, please. Yeah, because actually Yishmael had done tshuva. He repented at the end of his life, and therefore that's why he let Yitzchak go first, and he was involved in the burial as well. Any questions, thoughts?
Yeah, my other question was that they wanted Rivka because she came from a better family, like she had good midos, even though they were not. But yet some of the commentaries like that you were sharing and stuff make it sound like they were really very, very bad.
They were bad people, correct? But she had wonderful character. That is correct.
So she did, but why
They did not. That's correct.
So why would Abraham send Eliezer all the way there? Why was that so important? That
Because
family.
he felt that the potential of the character of the character development would be greater there, and he was living in Canaan, and he was not impressed by that. So therefore, that's why he wanted that.
So even then, they're not that good. They were still better than anybody he had found in Canaan.
Correct.
But Eliezer was a pretty elevated person.
He was the term that's used is he was a Canaanite, so he was Orur, he was cursed, because he got cursed. His predecessor was cursed, one of the children of Noah.
So they couldn't be that. So they weren't They weren't suitable for
Correct.
for Isaac. Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? All right. Have a great week, everybody. All the best. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, Connie. Bye.
This was my lunch break from work. I'm going back to the hospital now.
Dave. What?
I'm going back to the hospital now. This was my lunch break.
Work. Oh, okay.
It's
Did you eat something as well?
Baruch Hashem. Yeah, you know what? There's no kosher places around here, so I have to make my 3 meals and prepare them in advance every day. So.
Where are you? Where's the hospital?
It's in Park Slope, so it's New York Presbyterian, but it's Brooklyn Methodist. So, it's not a Jewish area. So
It can't
anyway,
be that far. Is it
it's
far?
It's not. It's like by car in the morning. It takes like maybe 18 minutes to drive.
All right.
Yeah.
Just got to prepare before. That's all.
Yeah. That's what
All
I've been doing. So And I
Perhaps-
I work every Sunday because I can't work on Friday and Shabbos because the,
Gotcha.
12 and a half hour shift. So
Yeah, I
it's
hear you.
okay. It's okay. It is what it
Behatzlacha.
is. Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
what you can do, by the way, you consider doing is Fridays is cook for and put it in little things and freeze it. And this way you can be prepped for the week.
Yeah. But I like to have a salad, and the salad is only good fresh.
I
You
hear
know?
you. I hear you. All
So
right.
I prepare my romaine lettuce at the beginning of the week. I wash it, I clean it, and then I cut it up, at
Gotcha.
work.
Okay.
So anyway, all right.
Fair enough. Much
Thank you.
hatzlacha. Feel good.
Thank you.
Take
Okay,
care.
bye.
All the best. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye, S.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye. You're welcome. Bye. You're welcome. Take care, Letty. Letty, you let me know when it's good for you, okay?